Sometimes, all you want to do is play a strategy game made by passionate people who live for their craft. Have you ever been disappointed with the amount of tactics or skill required in a modern strategy game? If you are like me and think that actual tactics and historical accuracy makes all the difference, then I think I've found exactly the game for you. This is Field of Glory 2, a deep, ancient tactical warfare simulator where you get to fight every battle yourself and decide every move. Field of Glory 2 is just about to receive its latest massive expansion, Swifter Than Eagles, featuring civilizations like the ancient Egyptians, Trojans, the Sumerians, and Akkadians, and more than a dozen other factions for you to lead and conquer with. But what even is Field of Glory, you may ask? Well, this is one of those gems you've never heard about, but which is absolutely going to get you hooked. Where other strategy games might focus on the flashy, Field of Glory 2 is completely and utterly dedicated to the historical and the simulation part of warfare. And we're not talking just any type of warfare either, but ancient warfare. With Swifter Than Eagles completing this massive package, Field of Glory 2's battlefields and campaigns span a truly spectacular time span, from all the way back in 2500 BC to the much more recent Viking era and the formation of major European kingdoms, all the way forward to 1040 AD. Field of Glory 2's complete experience offers literally more than 100 different factions, all with their own unique units and playstyles. But it doesn't even stop there, as Field of Glory 2 Medieval, a follow-up to Field of Glory 2, simulates the period beginning with the High Middle Ages and continues throughout the Late Medieval period. Here you'll find the same tactical goodness as in Field of Glory 2, but with that medieval focus. And I really mean focus. Not only does the main game give you a wide selection of almost 30 factions and various campaigns and battles, but here too, the expansions enhance the experience further, partially by adding more factions and ways to play, but by extending the time span into the 15th and 16th centuries. In other words, the Field of Glory series offers you one of the most comprehensive overviews of the ancient and medieval periods ever, and is the only series which provides this type of tactical, simulation-style tabletop battles. Of course, we're here to talk about Swifter Than Eagles, the latest expansion for this game. This is a special one indeed, as we simply don't have that many strategy games taking place in an era which takes us a good 4,500 years backwards. And by doing so, in making the excellent choice to allow us to play as these ancient Egyptians, we thankfully get to lead some awesome chariots, which are deadly when used correctly. That's something I want to point out, by the way, namely the look of these units. It's no secret that these may not be the most realistic or lifelike unit models you've ever seen, but they're not meant to be. These are recognizable, tabletop-like figures, meant to first and foremost symbolize grand armies. They do look absolutely charming though, and especially when playing in 4K, which makes them really pop. But other than just visuals, this has some interesting influences on the gameplay itself. You see, rather than focusing on being cinematic, Field of Glory 2 is meant to be tactical, to make you feel like you have an overview of the battlefield, and to be able to spot your opportunities and challenges. And even though it might look simple to grasp, the gameplay is much deeper than you might think. This is a turn-based strategy game where every move and action point matters, the latter which each unit makes use of every turn, either by moving or attacking enemies. Each unit type offers different strengths and weaknesses, including ranged weapons or not, and whether they're good at actual close combat. In addition, their type also restricts their movement, meaning the new chariot units are much more mobile than the shielded spearmen, for example. Similarly, some units are designated as commanders, which not only comes with a morale boost for nearby troops, but allows you to move several units at the same time before battle commences. The units are not everything, of course. The terrain in Field of Glory is basically just as important. This means that everything aside from open fields have modifiers related to them, and finding yourself in a thick forest or on top of a hill will make the entire difference if, again, you know how to take advantage of it. Archers are, for example, able to make great use of heights, while infantry of any type receive a combat bonus or debuff depending on which side or angle of the hill they're fighting on. Swifter Than Eagles offer various new ancient era campaigns, and I of course began as the Egyptians, beginning as Ramses II. But Field of Glory does not mess around, and it's completely possible to lose even the very first battle of the campaign. We begin on a more or less open field, but our enemy, the Nubians, conveniently begin on top of a hill. And we are of course the advancer here. In other words, we had to close the gap, but definitely find a creative way of doing so. Luckily, our army consisted of a handsome amount of archers and a not half bad number of chariots. This is something you can often choose yourself before battle, by the way. By spending manpower, you can to a large degree tailor your army composition to your liking. Within reason, of course, and reason is here represented by the overall army limit, and the limit of each individual unit type. This goes for the campaign, by the way, and in custom battles, you can fight whoever with whomever you want. For now, my job was to get my men up that hill. To do so, I began by darkening the sky with arrows, forcing them to fight in the shade. At least that's how I imagined it. I sent my men forward, and for the longest time, our two sides fought on, below, and on top of this hill. Meanwhile, I sent other units around to flank them, a universally based tactic if there ever was one. This is where chariots come in mighty handy as well. You see, what's so awesome about Field of Glory is that it's not all about killing and winning battles. There's also a deep system of morale here. You see, by focusing your fire at certain units, or simply overpowering them in combat, units can become disrupted, fragmented, and finally break. These are essentially stages of their morale breaking down, and making a smart move can sometimes even impact more than one unit at a time. This means that a good cavalry charge, or a good old-fashioned win after a brawl, might just make units flee one at a time in the same hit, rolling up that carpet in the most satisfying way. Preparing your army before combat, and making good use of archers and infantry during combat is not the only important aspect here then, but actually making the best use of your units, and by actually using tactics to your advantage, absolutely means the difference between victory and defeat here. I also really appreciate that the tide of these battles kind of ebb and flow. Most battles are not only won by routing about half of the enemy force, meaning, like it happened in history, that forcing the enemy off the battlefield was just as important as killing them, but I love that it often feels like battles aren't decided right off the bat. Early victories mean little if you can't keep your momentum going, so whether you find yourself in the beginning stages, or those crucial mid to late moments on the field, it's always so important to be aware of what's going on. I also love that the campaign is influenced by your performance in the last battle and your current choices, meaning that it actually feels like an interconnected journey throughout history. All of these aspects go for every single battle in Field of Glory too. But if you want to take your armies forth and play in this amazing ancient era that we so rarely get to enjoy, then Swifter Than Eagles releases February 16 on Steam. It not only includes the famous ancient Egyptians, Hittites, and Sea People civilizations, but over a dozen other factions, with many so-called biblical era civilizations featured for the first time, including a number of epic historical battles and 4 new historical campaigns, allowing you to lead the Akkadian, Hittite, or the Neo-Assyrian Empire, and finally, New Kingdom Egypt led by Ramses II himself. And yes, these games do offer a multiplayer feature as well, including a whole lot of tournaments, which are just as intense every time. The entire Field of Glory series is on sale right now, by the way, so if you ever wanted to check out this vast and deep world of simulation strategy, then now is the time to make the leap. Let me know your thoughts on the Field of Glory series in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. A big thanks to Slitherine for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!